Welcome back. Today, we're jumping right into Chapter 2 of the New Business Revolution titled Mind and Management. This material is just totally fascinating because it takes this deeply philosophical, really holistic approach to workplace dynamics. It's going to challenge us to completely rethink what it actually means to be successful and motivated at work.
Okay, let's dive into this core question right off the bat. Why is it that mechanical, repetitive work literally drains our vitality? And why, when it comes right down to it, is a paycheck, income alone, never really enough to keep us satisfied in the long run? These are the exact questions the author wrestles with, and the answers offer a totally fresh lens on our daily professional lives.
So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover the happiness equation, the motivation killer, redefining worldly success, the ideal manager, and finally, harmony over confrontation.
All right, moving right into part 1, the happiness equation.
To build this equation, the text introduces a concept that might sound a bit counterintuitive for a typical corporate setting. It argues that spiritual truth and business ethics, they aren't opposites at all. They're fundamentally connected. The author, Ryuho Okawa, presents what he calls a prophetic blueprint for future society. His whole premise is that for a society to truly thrive from here on out, it needs a synthesized value system. We can't just silo spiritual truth over here and economics over there. The future demands that these spheres merge into a single cohesive set of values.
So, what does that look like in practice? Well, the author outlines this specific equation. True workplace reward equals income, plus happiness, plus a sense of contribution. The argument is that you've got to actively seek out roles where you maximize not just your paycheck, but your intrinsic happiness and your sense of actually contributing to a better society. The text even calls it a utopian ideal. It's a total paradigm shift from just working to survive to working to contribute.
Which brings us to part 2, the motivation killer.
Obviously, there are massive systemic problems out there that can absolutely crush this happiness equation. The source text strongly criticizes a concept it calls mechanical egalitarianism. This means rigid, quota-based systems that try to enforce this artificial equality across the board. The author argues that when you create environments where hard work doesn't correlate with reward or purpose, you just completely sap human vitality. It destroys the will to work because, well, it strips away any real sense of personal achievement.
This anecdote brilliantly captures just how absurd these mechanical systems can get. The text shares this slightly hilarious but super memorable story about state-run Soviet factories. It points out that if the state sets a production quota based strictly on weight, well, instead of meticulously crafting 100 useful little desks, the factory just slaps together one totally useless 30-ton desk to hit the target. It's the perfect illustration of how mechanical quotas destroy actual value and human ingenuity.
Let's jump to part 3, redefining worldly success.
Now, because mechanical systems basically fail to inspire us, the source notes that as we move away from them, the very definition of worldly success is transforming. Looking at traditional metrics versus the new holistic value system, we see a massive shift. The old way was all about rigid bureaucracy, standardizing output, and this cutthroat self-display. But under a holistic system, society actually shifts its respect toward creative and social contributions. The text explicitly points out how professions like fashion designers or TV directors, roles that maybe rigid corporate structures used to look down on, are now highly valued for their diversified talents. And competition itself gets reframed. Instead of bitter, cutthroat battles to show off, it becomes what the author calls friendly rivalry, a way for peers to polish themselves and level up together.
Moving right along to part 4, the ideal manager.
As the workforce leans into these diversified, creative talents, the people in charge obviously have to adapt too. So the crucial point here is that promoting someone just because they have seniority, or because of their age, or even out of pity, is just a failing strategy in this new era. The author breaks down 3 non-negotiable requirements for a modern manager. Step 1, they absolutely must have a superior character paired with a proven track record. Step 2, they need high-level foresight, meaning they can accurately anticipate the future. And Step 3, they've got to possess a profound philosophy of life.
Let's unpack that last point a bit. The text points out that an employee might literally spend decades at the same company. Because of that huge time commitment, a manager can't just be someone barking business instructions all day. They have to act as a teacher of life. They need that personal magnetism, that human appeal, and the life wisdom to guide their team not just through their daily tasks, but in their overall personal growth.
And finally, part 5, harmony over confrontation.
This brings us to the most macro-level concept.
If individuals are driven by contribution and managers are acting as teachers of life, how should the relationship between corporate management and labor actually work? Well, the author presents a really strong critique of confrontational labor unions. The text argues that these confrontational models usually stem from a framework of Marxist class struggle and just baseline distrust. From the author's perspective, this adversarial setup is totally incompatible with a productive, forward-thinking business. Instead, the text heavily advocates for corporate harmony. That's a system rooted in cooperation, mutual trust, and relying on capable leadership to naturally guide the company and reward everyone involved.
The source material doesn't pull any punches here either. It literally states a corporate system built on hatred and opposition from the start is like a diseased cell inside the physical body. It's an incredibly vivid metaphor, right? The author's view is that starting from a place of opposition just eats away at the organization from the inside out. According to this philosophy, true progress only happens when you can trust excellent leaders to implement fair reforms rather than relying on combative, adversarial structures.
All of this really leaves us with a lot to chew on when it comes to our own careers. So I want to leave you with a question. Take a hard look at your own professional environment. Does your workplace operate on those soul-draining mechanical quotas and constant confrontation? Or is it actively moving toward holistic harmony, creative contribution, and friendly rivalry? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we keep unpacking the ideas shaping our world.